Bum, 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 bum.
We're gonna get a copyright strike off of this shit, you know.
We're not gonna get a copyright strike.
No, it's too good.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, people are gonna listen to us do that and go, "Holy shit, is that John Williams in a symphony orchestra?"
They will be thinking that as opposed to.
Is that the theme from James Bond?
Yes. Welcome back to Kill Indiana Jones.
That's right. Don't threaten me with a good idea.
It's not enough movies, though. That's the issue.
He fights the Nazis and then also the communists.
Well, the problem with that is we'd have to do my original.
There's a ton of young Indiana Jones like EU stuff though.
Yeah, there's that. There's all the video games. But what I'm thinking is
go back in time and kill young Indiana Jones.
Oh my god.
What we'd have to do is like what I was thinking of as the B plan for Kill James Bond after we ran out of Bond movies, which was not rebrand the podcast and watch other movies, but instead do all of the episodes again, but we're not allowed to rewatch any of the movies. So we have to do starting from Doctor No, but we only have our notes from watching it the first time.
I mean, why doesn't he simply kill them? That's the question I'm saying about Doctor No.
Yeah. Welcome to Well, There's Your Problem. It's a podcast about engineering disasters with slides.
It's so
I'm Justin Rosniak. I'm the person who's talking right now. My pronouns are he and him. Okay, go.
I'm Alice Caldwell Kelly. I am the person who is talking now. My pronouns are she and her. Yay, Liam.
Yay, Liam. Hi, I'm Liam Anderson. Oh, fuck. My pronouns are he and him.
Yeah.
I had to think about that for a second, did you?
Yeah. No.
Going to be a they them by next episode. I'm calling it
pronouns. My pronouns. I actually identify as an attack helicopter. Why am I being shipped to the front? I don't want to go to the front.
Actually, I sexually identify as a Bayraktar TB2 UCAV.
Oh god, Joe Kasabian's not going to be pleased by that. Listen, how shitty do you have to be at transporting fuel to get domed by Great Value Predator?
What you see on the screen,
unfortunately, bring up the notes.
Is not Penn Central Part 2.
No, we had an emergency.
We had an emergency. Yeah, there was a situation.
Well, for one thing, all three of us had to go and join the Ukraine Territorial Defense Force.
I will lay down my life for my ancestral home of Sweden, and I don't care anymore.
Well, it is the same colors on the flag.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have to learn too much.
Today we're going to talk about airmail.
Yes, the famous preteen clothing store, Aeropostale.
Yes,
it's decline and failure.
Man, whatever happened to Aeropostale? You don't see that shit anymore.
No, it's back. It's back. Some hedge fund bought it. Yeah, I saw one in the Cherry Hill Mall, and I thought I had time traveled.
God, that's going to be a weird vibe if I ever see one of those over here.
Incredible.
I like that I searched Aeropostale, and the first people also ask, is Aeropostale for 12-year-olds?
Aeropostale is the Team Fortress Red to Forever 21's Team Fortress Blue. You can pick one, and you have to remain loyal to it unto death. So,
oh Jesus, oh man!
All right, but before we talk about this,
there's still 1,000 stores in the Americas. That seems crazy. Anyway, go ahead.
The goddamn news.
Well,
all right. So Russia, Ukraine. Who you got?
Cubs and 5. I mean,
I'm going Bruins and 7. Personally, listen, I do want to get out ahead of as you know, and say, if you're looking to us for expert, nuanced geopolitical views, fuck you.
Yeah, only look to me. I'm the only one who does those. These two jokers, on the other hand. But yeah, no, some news has occurred. Some events have transpired.
Yes, stuff happened.
Russia actually went for it. They did the thing that seemed politically impossible and everybody except me was wrong about. And they actually tried to invade Ukraine and occupy at least some of it, perhaps all of it. We don't know yet.
Yeah, no one knows what the actual strategic goals are.
Someone DM'd me to call me a NATO shill, which
Oh, like a few days in, I've been a NATO shill. I've been a Putin shill. I get around, I guess.
I've just avoided posting about it because I wanted to save all my bad takes for here. I think Russia's got this one. I think they're going to do it.
It's a foregone conclusion, right? Like Russia's going to crush them, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's taken an embarrassingly long amount of time. It's required an embarrassing amount of help from both Belarus and also Ramzan Kadyrov and Chechnya to even get this far, right? And it's like, this is really revealing some serious operational weaknesses in the Russian military.
Oh, yeah.
Just to still not have uncontested air superiority.
Are they still not?
Still not, no.
Embarrassing.
It's not good. Like troops communicating on civilian radios using fucking Baofangs, like the guys who occupied the capital.
I mean, the Taliban managed it with cell phones. So
yeah, I mean, and the thing about a cell phone is you can
it turns out no one speaks Pashto, Roz.
You can command detonate an IED with a cell phone. Difficult to do with a radio. But obviously this is like, it's rare to see someone who isn't the United States and who is in fact opposed to the United States do the unambiguously evil thing. Like the last big hit we got like this was ISIS, I guess.
Oh yeah.
And now we have single-handedly, Putin has handed NATO a reason to exist.
Oops.
Driven Sweden and Finland into NATO.
Oops.
It badly embarrassed the DSA International Committee. Not that was that difficult to start with. And
Jesus,
I didn't think the statement was that bad.
They said the US should withdraw from NATO. That's clown shoes.
Yeah.
But
that would be pretty funny.
It would be. And this has led to a sort of almost totally unexpected groundswell of support for Ukraine. Not because people are NATO shills, although some are, but because a lot of people are justly outraged by this. Russia has had to do a considerable amount of like internal suppression of news and dissidents and protests and stuff. But also it means that now a shitload of airspace is closed to Russian planes. People are boycotting Russian products. Weirdos are filming themselves pouring out Russian vodka. Yeah. And we have here a rally in support of Ukraine in Center City, Philadelphia, spiritual home of the pod.
Yes.
Please ignore the red and black flag. Please ignore that flag. Please ignore the red. Please ignore that.
Do not. If you see this flag, make sure that flag is not at the protest.
Yes,
that's the Ukrainian insurgent army. They're the guys who work with the SS.
Yeah, see, this is the thing,
we're the
right?
SS.
Yeah, there's. Okay, so we should prioritize here, right? We're not saying every Ukrainian is a Nazi. We're not saying that Ukrainians are Nazis for wanting to defend themselves against the Russians. However, like every country in the world, and particularly in Eastern Europe, Ukraine has Nazis in it. Yes. Ukraine has had Nazis in it for a long time. So does Russia.
Yes.
But what this is, what this is in the form of a helpful guide to recognizing your flags at a protest, right? Because a lot of the people, everybody's been so wrong-footed by this. Everyone's been so surprised by this that there hasn't been time for a lot of the sort of like, if you like, the PR aspect of this on Ukraine's side to like work itself into a narrative. And so as a consequence, what you have are the people who are already there. And there are a lot of like Ukrainian diaspora communities in the US and Canada, of whom the people who are most interested in Ukrainian sovereignty tend to be, let's say, ideological, right?
Yes.
And this means that the people who like, say you want to buy a Ukrainian flag to show your support for innocent civilians being bombed by the Russians, right? The guy who is most ready to sell you a Ukrainian flag at this moment is also a guy who knows a surprising amount about the SS Division Galicia, right? And you should perhaps, like, it's not something to change the way that you feel about any of this, but it's something to perhaps keep in mind that this is the rare kind of protest where if you see a half red, half black flag, that's not a good thing.
Yes. You know what else I just noticed?
What's up?
Oh, David O, city council person at large, has a tent back here.
Ah.
Yeah.
David O.
David O. He's our token Republican.
David OUN, if you like.
The city charter says we have to have a Republican. Right? He did get stabbed. Yes,
he got stabbed. Why did he get stabbed?
Because we live in Philly.
Because he lives in Southwest Philly. Because
bad things happen in Philadelphia. Okay.
Yeah, that's our way of ensuring votes go the way we want is simply stabbing our opponents in the streets.
Yeah, there's
it's not easy work, but.
The reporter who posted this picture on Twitter got dogpiled for not knowing what that flag was, which I mean, I guess is understandable. Not many people know the UPA flag.
Not a lot of people are going to know that. And also I should say the extent to which, because now Russia is trying to frame invading Ukraine as a denazification effort. It's not a denazification effort.
No.
Partly because you're using guys like Kadyrov's guys who are halfway Nazi already. They're just Nazi but also Muslim. But partly because if you wanted to confect the best possible thing for Eastern European Nazis, the best thing you could do would be a unilateral Russian invasion of a country that is not Russia. Because now, even the fucking Polish Nazis are on board with the Ukrainian Nazis. Because now they have a narrative that seems to make sense, which is, we have to be strong and we have to be fascist in order to resist the obviously now very real Russian aggression.
You know, this whole thing sounds, what was that Spike TV television show, Deadliest Warrior?
Deadliest Warrior.
Deadliest Warrior. And it's
IRA versus Taliban.
Azov Battalion versus Chechens.
Azov Battalion versus Kadyrovцы is, I hope they both lose. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, my God. All right.
I have one thing, but hang on because I'm chewing.
I also just this to fill time while you're chewing. Don't freak out about nuclear war. There isn't going to be a nuclear war. If there is going to be a nuclear war, you will not have time to own me about it. But there isn't, right?
No, I'll have time to own you about it.
Yeah, I also will.
Yeah, I'll get right in the group chat and say you're owned. I get owned.
There are two possible ways for a nuclear war to start
with the
here,
Russian cloud over South Philly.
One is Russian troops enter a NATO member like Poland or the Baltics. That's not going to happen because it would start a nuclear war instantly. The other is NATO troops enter Ukraine, and that would start a nuclear war. However, only one of these, to my knowledge, has people advocating for it because the fucking libs and their fucking death drive have determined that now what we should do is as a no-fly zone in Ukraine, which is fully a nuclear war. That is starting.
I mean, there was a Twitter notification last night. You know how Twitter pushes news notifications, right? And it said,
you can turn that off, right, guy?
Yeah, well,
at this point.
It's never given me a heart attack before because the way it was phrased yesterday is it sounded like Biden had declared a no-fly zone, and it was actually Biden has restricted U.S. airspace to Russian aircraft,
which is technically a no-fly zone, I guess.
I guess, but that's okay. So Aeroflot can't land here. Whatever that happened 3 days ago too.
When we say no-fly zone, what we're talking about happening is NATO warplanes would go in and shoot down Russian planes, which would be a shooting war between the US and Russia. It's something Biden has already ruled out because he's more sensible than every fucking Rand Corporation Foundation for the Defense of Democracy's vampire.
Which is total lunacy, by the way.
Yes.
That fucking...
It wouldn't even fucking work.
No.
Probably not.
But I do have a question.
Yes.
Okay. So this was posed by my dad, which was he was talking about the old method when he was redacted making Molotov cocktails, where he was saying he was talking about how he used to make Molotov cocktails back in the old days, and now because he's been out of the game, he understands that they use styrofoam in them, and he was trying to quantify the environmental effects of breathing in gasoline and dissolved styrofoam.
Yeah, I saw a video of Ukrainian women making Molotov cocktails, and they're just grinding up styrofoam with cheese graters, and it's just all in the air and everything.
The answer is don't breathe that in.
You probably want to wear a mask.
Yeah,
you want to wear a mask when you're doing that
because I was figuring you couldn't use the gasoline because now has styrofoam in it for a car anymore. So you just have a village well of Molotov makings, and you just put it in an oil drum in the center of your town.
Yeah, it's like a
sounds
poor
like-
man's napalm.
This
Yeah.
sounds like the libs giving advice on how one guy can take out a tank.
That's
I
not
hated that shit,
That
dude.
was awful.
that was use a paint balloon, or use the 900 million javelins you guys have lying around.
I'm going to be honest. I mean, I think if Ukraine wins this one, the fact they armed all those civilians is going to come back to bite them.
Oh, I think that's absolutely true.
It's going to come back to bite everybody. Like
Everyone, yeah.
The sort of the think tank determination now is, now that we have caught Putin's dick in our mousetrap, we are going to try and make Ukraine his own personal Afghanistan. And I don't say this lightly, but the insurgency in Afghanistan had some negative consequences for people other than the Red Army. Not just even the Americans, but also the people in Afghanistan, the people in the countries neighboring Afghanistan. So yeah, no, this kind of insurgency shit, it's gonna get worse before it gets better.
Yes,
but there probably still won't be nuclear war. You can
Probably
quote me
not.
on that.
Well, in other news, they're gonna bring.
This is a miscarriage of justice.
They're gonna bring Brandon Bastian to trial to say he was recklessly driving when he crashed the train back in 2013. I think this is one of the stupidest attempts at trying someone for a systemic failure ever. It's been rejected by all the lower courts several times over. The judge on this case has ruled, however, that the defense can't use the argument that Amtrak should have installed automatic train control on that track as an argument.
I mean, they already kind of did a road version of this with that trucker in Colorado who was jailed for, I guess, manslaughtering people, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
Because he had a brake shoe that was worn through, and nominally he should have checked this instead of the company.
For context here, in 2013, a train was overspeeding at the Frankfurt Junction curve in Philly, and came off the track, killed a bunch of people. The train wrecked. That the engineer Brandon Bastian had been distracted by reports of kids throwing rocks at trains, which is something we do in Philly.
Bad things happen in Philadelphia.
Yeah, exactly. And lost track of where he was, so he didn't remember to slow down to 70 miles an hour for the curve, or 60 or whatever it is, and instead went through it 110. And so that was not good. He survived, and now they're trying to pin the accident on him personally, as opposed to there's supposed to be automatic systems in place. And in fact, there had been automatic systems in place on this curve for 100 years, literally, but only on the southbound tracks, not the northbound ones.
This is going to be a very pro-union argument. If you recall back to our APT episode where I suggested that the strength of British labour unions was such that you needed like a 6-man train crew, I feel if you're going to be giving train operators the responsibility of managing fucking information workflow about kids throwing rocks at trains, you need a second guy to do that while one guy drives the train.
That's always something I thought was wild, is that freight trains need 2 guys in a cab, but passenger trains only need 1.
No, this is so Josh Shapiro, who is running for governor in Pennsylvania and is a member of my people.
Sorry, did you want to put the fucking echoes on his name too?
Listen, he's running for governor, and this feels like pure political opportunism, and it's fucking disgusting. What's his last name? I know it's just his
Brandon Bastian.
I almost said Bosco for some reason. Boskov. It's it's a tragic accident. Tragic accidents happen. This is a systemic failure. This is not Brandon it's a miscarriage of justice, and the state knows it. Josh Shapiro knows it. We know it. You know it. I know it. The kids throwing rocks know it.
Yeah, it was funny is people went back on his he posted on trainorders.com or .org which is the railfan forum you have to pay to join. And he had a series of posts about exactly this safety condition on Frankfurt Junction, that there was no automatic train stop or automatic train control on the outer two tracks, despite the fact that there's a higher speed zone right before the curve and a higher speed zone right afterwards.
Jesus.
Overall, very safety conscious person who just got unlucky.
I mean, I feel like if you select at random, right, like it's shitty for it to land on the person who is like alive to this problem and like cares about it, rather than the guy who just doesn't give a shit, right?
Yeah. My God.
I suppose we'll all be punished for our kindnesses, right? So like,
this is true.
Yeah. Speaking of, I should have put in a slide about the Texas trans thing. I'll do that next episode.
Right. Yeah, we should put that in.
Nuke Texas and Florida and every state. Nuke ourselves.
Mr. Putin, fire when ready. You know what else we should do? We should put some links to some Ukrainian humanitarian organizations in the description that you can click on right now.
True, yeah. Yeah, because it's if you can help by way of that, I don't think you can help by way of giving people advice on how to disable a tank.
Do not post. Don't go to Ukraine and enlist. But what you can do maybe is give to the Red Cross or something, and that'll help a bit. Maybe, I don't know.
Although if you do enlist, please wear one of our T-shirts.
Yes,
absolutely.
We got to work on branding. Yeah, I do love the idea of the WTYP battalion, which just tries to fight everyone.
If you can gin up like some kind of cool laser cut WTYP like tactical patch to wear, send us a photo of that from Ukraine, and we'll give you I don't know what we'll give you. Something
cool. Yeah.
So note that you should be fighting on the Ukrainian side. Do not join the Russian army.
Please do not join the Russian army.
If you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence, don't do that.
If you're on the fence, like I recommend you fight for Ukraine and not for Russia. All things considered.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that was the goddamn news. Okay, so we're going to talk about airmail, but in order to get into that, we're going to talk about early air transport, right?
We're going to talk about the Montgolfiers and shit.
I actually skipped over that. I decided we'll talk about the first time mail was transported by air. Jean-Pierre Blanchard lifted off a balloon from the Walnut Street Jail in Philadelphia on January 9th, 1793. Woo! Yes.
Good things also happen in Philadelphia.
Yes, it was a great public spectacle, and of course, Benjamin Franklin was said to be in attendance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Using this as a diversion so he could steal from graves.
No, that was a callback to our Hindenburg episode.
Oh, well. I don't know.
Benjamin Franklin, like fucking Professor X, hand to temple, imagining the future of the Antonov 225.
Well, no, he just attended every balloon launch he could.
No, that's true. Man was crazy for balloons.
It's true.
Loved a balloon. Loved an envelope filled with gas. Absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the things Blanchard carried on the balloon was a personal letter from George Washington to be delivered to whomever's property the balloon landed on.
That's a perfect 18th century like comedy thing. It's like, yeah, you are our 100,000th visitor. Fucking letter from George Washington. Just like, to whom it may concern, check out this weird guy.
I was listening to William Tecumseh Sherman's memoirs last night.
And
there's a woman whose house was spared because he had stayed with her family in like the 1840s. And apparently brought out the book she had him sign that he had given her as a gift. It was like, no, see, I know William Tecumseh Sherman. Please do not burn down my house.
God, Sherman owned.
So Blanchard drifted over the and landed in Deptford, New Jersey.
Oh, that's a shame.
That's weird that there's a town named after Deptford too. Like, I've been to our Deptford and
don't worry, ours isn't much better.
Perfect.
This was the first time mail was delivered by air in what was the I guess it was at that point the United States of America.
Even if you had to address it at that point as guy whose farm this lands on.
Yes. So heavier than air flight becomes a reality in 1903, right? The Wright brothers do the first flight at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, although the actual flight location now is within the municipal boundaries of Kill Devil Hills.
Of what?
Kill Devil Hills.
Kill Devil Hills.
Fuck, that name rules.
Yeah, it's on the Outer Banks. It's too fucking crowded. I recommend if you want to go to the beaches, go farther south. It's a lot less. There's a lot less stuff there. You can relax better.
He's right. Yeah. Sam's Diner. Yeah. What else we got? Oh no, it's called the Kill Devil Grill or something. I don't know.
Kill Devil Grills.
Rules.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Outer Banks are sweet, man. And also, North Carolina has Cape Fear and the Cape Fear River.
Oh yeah, and they got you can go down. You can go see the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse.
Shout out from There's Your Problem. A salute from There's Your Problem to the state of North Carolina.
NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte.
You got a lot of cool shit in you.
Last time I was down there, we stayed at a house at a town called Waves that had a Dairy Queen and a general store. That was it.
That's all you need, dude. That's all you need.
That's all you need. Yeah. Anyway, so the Wright brothers did a couple short, successful flights, right? And then the wind picked up the Wright Flyer and smashed it against a dune right before they were going to try and do a 4-mile flight all the way to the town center of Kitty Hawk.
Damn.
Yeah. So they boxed it up. They went back home to Dayton, Ohio, but they figured out pretty quickly how to make much better planes that weren't as unstable as the Wright Flyer.
It's so funny to me that Ohio's on this like first in flight thing because we had the Wright brothers and we had a shitload of astronauts, right? Like the only thing that tells me about Ohio is that everybody who's from there is very keen to leave it, and so keen, in fact, that they're willing to do it in a vertical direction.
Yes.
I would rather be in outer space than in this godforsaken hellhole. Send me up, baby.
So by 1905, they could fly a plane for 30 minutes. Yeah, going around 50 miles an hour, too.
There's a bunch of Santos Dumont people in the mentions who are mad at us right now.
Yes, because the newspapers in Dayton love them and were always reporting on them, but they didn't send photographers. So a bunch of other newspapers like Scientific American, newspapers in New York, Washington, places like newspapers in Europe were like, this is made up. They're not actually doing it.
Yeah, you're welcome for not speaking German.
Yeah.
Except for you, Alice.
Oh.
Well, you speak German.
Well, eventually someone took a picture and then everyone believed it.
Yeah, and it still didn't help. They still don't have a Cartier watch named after them, whereas Santos Dumont does. So, Europeans will be partisan about this shit.
Well, you need some kind of exclusive Dayton, Ohio watchmaker.
Actually, the Mallard was faster. No, it fucking wasn't.
I would totally be on board with some kind of Dayton-based micro brand. Like until they got cancelled, fucking Shinola in Detroit making watches was like my jam for a while. So
aviation before World War I was largely confined to fucking around, right?
As it should have been, and as to which it should return.
As opposed to finding out, I guess.
Yeah. The first attempt to deliver mail by air.
Deliver air by mail.
Air by mail. Yeah.
Just a balloon with a stamp on it.
I mean, it's just an empty crate.
What is the difference between that and Gamer Girl bathwater? Not much.
Oh. Yeah, you got a letter addressed to whom it may concern of George Washington's bathwater.
Oh, God. Don't like that.
It's got a big sheen of oil on the top.
Stop it.
No.
It's like I've got a wig powder substrate.
Stop. Oh, yeah. I just ate lunch.
Got a little bit of woody flavor from the teeth,
This tastes like ivory.
So,
and is that syphilis?
There was a mail was delivered by air.
Fuck you and your attempts to organize us.
In 1911 as a stunt, right? From Garden City, Long Island to Mineola, Long Island. That's about 6 miles.
So it was like one of those like machines that you stamp a penny in.
Yeah. And they only did
Elongated
it-
coins.
They only did it once, for reasons which we'll get into right now. The theory here was they could deliver mail just like they deliver it from a nonstop express train, right?
Oh no, I know how
Dropping-
you deliver mail from an express
sacks
train.
out the side.
Yeah, they dumped the bag out of the airplane as it passed over the post office at 500 feet.
So they just carpet bombed the mail. Okay.
This is
I
before
like
the convention on cluster munitions, so it's fine.
Well, you mentioned cluster munitions, and that's appropriate because the bag burst when it hit the ground. A bunch of the letters flew away.
Oh, that's a shame.
I feel like this could be a solved problem though. You just got to give the bag a little parachute, right? And it could work.
This is true. By World War I, the advantage of flight for military use were obvious, right? So planes got bigger. Planes became sort of semi-mass produced, right? So people could bomb each other and shoot at each other, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And observe artillery.
Yes. Now, the United States faced an issue, which is they were going to have to enter World War I, but they didn't really have many pilots, certainly not many pilots who were trained in flying long distances, right? So one solution...
How far is a long distance in this case?
I like I don't know, 40 miles.
Yeah.
One solution that was proposed was scheduled airmail, right? It would train pilots in all conditions, provide revenue in the process, right?
It's a win-win.
So this is
Yeah, we'll get to that.
the source on this is C.V. Klein's. This was an article published in the May 1994 issue of Aviation History. I think there's also an online version. I'll put a link to it. So day one of airmail. Here we go. Colonel E.A. Deeds of the aviation section of the Signal Corps of the U.S. Army offered to, because this is before there was an Army Air Corps, right? Offered to run the first airmail service for the post office. The route was going to go from Washington, D.C., to Philadelphia to New York City and back once a day each way, 5 days a week.
Oh, office hours.
Yes. And this is because, again, the folks in Europe wanted more pilots with cross-country experience, right? So on March 1st, an agreement was reached to establish the route by May 15th. I want to say, what year was this? Did I not write down the year?
You did not.
I'm an idiot.
I mean,
still love you.
just think about like the two methods of gaining experience as a pilot at this point. If you were in the U.S.
It's
Army,
1918.
Thank you.
To go and join the French Air Force, go and join like Escadron Lafayette, which a lot of black pilots did because they weren't able to do it in the U.S. Army,
Right.
and get killed in the first 15 minutes, or learn like sort of a Soulsborne sort of learning curve. Like you either die instantly or you learn, or you do this with mailbags, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm never going to pass up an opportunity to talk about Eugene Bullard.
After this agreement was reached, no one did anything, right, for a while.
Cool.
Again, this is May 15th, 1918, when this service is supposed to start.
War's going to be over by November.
And there's an issue here, of course. Washington, D.C. doesn't have an airfield. New York City doesn't have an airfield. Philadelphia does have a little airfield called Bustleton Field.
I assume that's where Northeast Philly Airport is now?
No, it's
No,
actually
it wouldn't be.
somewhere else. Yeah, it's not. It's not. I tried to figure out exactly where it was, and I couldn't figure out other than it's in Bustleton.
Sure.
So anyway, Major Reuben H. Fleet, who was in charge of pilot instruction at the Army Air Service,
They hadn't invented normal names yet.
yes, learned about the proposed route on May 3rd. On May 6th, Secretary of War Newton Baker told Fleet that he would be in charge of making it happen.
Oh,
He has 9 days.
that's prompt, I guess.
So Fleet protested this decision. He had no pilots with experience flying cross country, no planes capable of that range. You know, their best option, the Curtiss JN-4D Jenny. That's this plane here. It had a range of 88 miles.
Oh,
Right. And Baker said, you got to figure this out.
What distance is it roughly between DC and Philadelphia?
I'd say
150 miles.
150, and then it's 80 miles from Philly to New York, or 90 miles, excuse me.
You got to land in a field halfway through and then find a way to fuel up your plane.
Oh boy, it gets worse.
Well, it's going to get worse, yeah.
Yeah. So the Postmaster General had already issued a press release, right? The flight was going to happen.
Oh. Don't like that. Don't like being bound to a press release.
So Fleet called up the Curtiss Airplane Corporation, unlike one of those old-timey phones, where you have to hold the receiver,
Yeah.
and speak into the thing on the wall.
He had to dial 12 for this.
Yes. Yeah, it was a long distance call, which means that it went, 14 blocks over. Fleet called up Curtiss Airplane Corporation to modify some of the planes with bigger fuel tanks and to remove the seat for the instructor, right? And add some larger engines, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a Super Lagaria.
Yes.
And then Fleet made arrangements to use College Park Airport for the flight, right? College Park Airport is about 9 miles north of Washington, D.C. And the Postmaster General said, no, can't use that one. It's too far from the post office, right? Okay, so they can't use the actual
from the roof.
They can't use the actual airport to land and take off the planes. So he finds an open field in West Potomac Park, the Polo Grounds, and that's where they're gonna. That's the plane staging point, right? They go from that open field to Bustleton Field, and then in New York City, they wind up picking Belmont Park in Long Island, which is a horse racing track, right?
Gross.
It's still there, of course.
I mean, it makes sense, right? It's flat, it's straight.
This is true, yes. Until you get to that curve.
Oh, well, then you just you pull on the stick and you just go round. It's fine.
That's a good point, yeah. And these are like old-timey planes, they take like 10 feet to take off, and they take off at like 6 miles an hour. So Fleet had the job of choosing 4 of the 6 pilots to be assigned to the route, but the other 2, who were supposed to pilot the first flights, were political assignments.
Hell yes.
Uh-oh.
Now that's the graft that I've come to know and love from early 20th century American politics.
So Lieutenants James C. Edgerton and George L. Boyle were selected by the post office for their qualifications as pilots. They had a full 60 hours of training and were respectively son of a post office purchasing official and son-in-law of Interstate Commerce Commission guy, Judge Charles C. McCord.
How
right, respectively.
Convenient for them.
Yes.
Knights of the Sky.
Neither had any cross-country flight experience, and in fact, both of them had just graduated flight school a few days before. Right?
Uh-huh.
So on May 13th, Reuben Fleet took the train up to Hazelhurst Field in Long Island with the pilots to receive the modified biplanes. And he was happy to see that Curtiss had delivered the planes in time. But he was not pleased to see that they were delivered in crates, disassembled.
Some assembly required.
IKEA Aviation, baby.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Army mechanics scrambled to build the planes, right? It was less than 72 hours before the first flight.
Army mechanics ever not had to scramble? If you're an army mechanic, have you ever had the time to fix something at your leisure?
You're probably a shitty army mechanic.
Yeah.
By the afternoon of May 14th, 2 of the planes were ready to go. So Fleet took an unmodified Jenny and led Lieutenants Howard P. Culver, who was the most experienced pilot of the pilots there, and Lieutenant Edgerton to Bustleton Field in Philly, right? Which, again, he's in an unmodified Jenny with a range of 88 miles and is a 90-mile flight.
How did we not end up with a kind of belief in a Delaware Triangle, right?
That's a good question, Alex.
Because the Bermuda Triangle exists because planes crashed in it because people didn't know what they were doing, right? How did we not end up believing that this particular area of like Maryland, Delaware is like not haunted?
Oh, it's haunted.
We'll get to that.
I see.
Yeah,
So-
actually, the crazy thing is that you may not know this, but Roz is an incarnation of a downed pilot from 1921. You can tell by
Explains the
his
flying
grizzled beard that he was a flying man once.
That's right.
And
that
he's
makes
come back
sense.
to warn us of podcast's future.
Ooh.
Mm.
That's right. It's what happens if you get like a pair of old goggles and like the leather hat on me.
I'm a leather daddy, but only for old-timey aviation.
So they flew from Hazleton Field, which is about here, over to Belmont Park. They refueled because you need to refuel after the 6-mile flight or whatever it is.
Pathetic.
Jesus. There's
and then
like a tractor engine in these things.
And in the very late afternoon, they took off and flew in a general southward direction, right? Now, Fleet's plane was the slowest, and he was supposed to be the leader, right? But Edgerton and Culver wound up flying ahead of him and then disappearing into the distance, right?
Oh, they got Flight 19.
Haunted.
All three of them wound up crashing into different fields and then having to ask farmers for the directions and buy gas off them and then take off again.
This is just a very inefficient way to try and plow different bits of Virginia.
Somehow they all made it to Bustleton Field, but they all agreed the planes were basically unflyable, right? They had all kinds of problems with them. One of them had a hole in the gas tank.
Saves weight.
How?
Well, I don't know.
I mean,
they plugged it with a pencil.
I know self-sealing gas tanks weren't invented until the 30s, right? But like, what were they making these things out of? Fucking tin?
Yeah.
Well, I had to come up with basically a whole modification scheme for the plane.
Tin and canvas, Alice.
In a week.
This is suddenly reminding me of the because I have autism, because of the World War II. It's reminding me of the World War II British Army solution to transporting large amounts of fuel, which was not to use a jerry can, but to use something called a flimsy, which was literally just like a fucking rubberized canvas sort of balloon that you filled with petrol and just kind of carried around and hoped for the best.
It's just like milk in a bag in Canada.
Exactly.
Stop. Don't say the phrase milk in a bag to me again, please. I know it's real. And I know our listeners are going to do the fucking weird shit where someone's either going to A, mail us milk in a bag, or B.
No,
won't.
Don't mail us milk in a bag.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Don't do that, please.
It'll be spoiled by the time it gets here.
I remember when we talked about jean jackets, someone did DM me a picture of themselves, like just wearing a jean jacket and they're having glasses. And I was like, thank you, but I'm taken. I'm sorry, ladies.
All right.
Hit up Roz for all your DM thirst trap needs.
Also, I'm checking and I am wrong about the flimsy. It was made of tin. It just had crimped seams.
Oh, that doesn't, that sounds like a great way to just get a fuel bomb everywhere you go.
Absolutely.
So Army mechanics at Bustleton Field worked through the night to fix one of the planes, just one of them.
Pathetic.
And Fleet flew that plane down to the Washington Polo Fields the next morning, arriving 25 minutes before the mail was scheduled to depart. Now, Lieutenant Boyle, who was supposed to fly the first scheduled mail, he took the train.
Smart.
Yeah. So, with a lot of fanfare and pomp and circumstance, and with President Woodrow Wilson, Postmaster General Albert S. Burleson, and Assistant Secretary of the Navy Franklin Delano Roosevelt in attendance.
Hey, I've heard of that guy.
Yeah. Pilot George L. Boyle took off from West Potomac Park on May 15th, 1918, with instructions to follow the Pennsylvania Railroad tracks to Philadelphia.
Because that's the only navigation you can do.
Yes.
Yeah.
They turned over the propellers, and the plane didn't start. They tried again, plane still didn't start. They checked the spark plugs, which were fine. Then they checked the gas tank, which was empty.
Oh.
So the dignitaries stood around and waited 45 minutes while a truck brought gasoline in from the Washington Navy Yard. Boyle took off, barely missed the tree line. They say he cleared it by about 3 feet.
That's all you need, baby. 3 feet in a dream, baby.
He had 140 pounds of mail to be relieved at a Bustleton airfield by Lieutenant Culver, right? Now, we've discussed a couple times on the show, I think most recently in the Armored Trains episode, the con that the Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington Railroad, which is a Pennsylvania Railroad predecessor, the con they pulled to get into Washington, D.C., which was...
Yeah.
The main line was from Baltimore to Port Tobacco, Maryland, right? And then there was a branch line, I'm in air quotes there, branch line that went from Bowie, Maryland to Washington, D.C., right?
Yeah.
Boyle made it as far as Bowie, Maryland.
Pathetic.
Oh no.
And then he took a hard right and flew south.
How hard?
Come
on, man.
Along the Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington Railroad to Waldorf, Maryland. 20 miles south of where he started.
That's not very good.
He ran out of fuel and he crash landed on a farm. He was unharmed, but the expensive and specially modified plane was upside down.
Oh.
The field, of course, was owned by Assistant Postmaster General Otto Prager. So the mail was quietly trucked back to Washington, D.C. The plane was repaired and flew back. Culver departed on time and arrived on time at Belmont Park in Washington, in New York City, but he didn't have any mail. Edgerton on the reverse flight arrived on time with mail at the Polo Grounds in D.C., right? So 2 days later, the Postmaster General insisted, against Reuben Fleet's wishes, that Boyle be given another chance. So Lieutenant Edgerton flew ahead of him as far north as the Susquehanna River, right? So they're on... Let me change colors here. It's going to be yellow. He got all the way up to the Susquehanna River. I guess it's a little bit farther back here. And then once he got to the Susquehanna River crossing, Edgerton's like, all right, there's no way Boyle's getting lost. He dipped his wings and flew back.
There's no way he can get lost.
Boyle immediately got lost.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I get it, right? Like, you don't even have a paradigm for what, like, the Earth is supposed to look like from above it yet. You have no fucking ability to navigate other than visual reference, and your field of view out of this, and this field of view out of this thing made of canvas that you can barely fucking hear yourself think. I get it, but like, come on, dude, Jesus Christ.
Boyle got lost. He somehow managed to make a U-turn and followed the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay all the way to Cape Charles, Virginia.
Oh my God.
Wait. South?
Yes.
This guy just loved going south.
You don't have a compass?
I'm not sure if these were equipped with a compass or not. One problem with compasses in these early aircraft is that they weren't shielded in such a way that the airplane itself would interfere with the compass, right? I'm not sure how that works exactly, but the compasses in these were notoriously unreliable. Also, the plane's bouncing around, it's all like crap. Anyway, so yeah. So he gets all the way to Cape Charles, Virginia, 100 miles south of Washington.
What we're developing is the most efficient method of the time to deliver mail from New York City to like Raleigh, North Carolina,
to a random location.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So and I think Reuben Fleet said he would have gone farther, but he ran out of land. He ran out of fuel and crash landed in a field asked a farmer for directions, bought some gas off the farmer.
Hey, these planes are pretty good at crash landing, hey?
I was about to say, yeah. And then he headed north, and this time actually made it almost to Bustleton Field.
Oh, progress isn't linear, baby.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say about that.
He circled the city for a couple hours trying to pick out the field. Couldn't find it. And crash landed between two trees at the Philadelphia Country Club, which is notably in Gladwin, not Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that sheared the wings off the plane and busted up the fuselage.
I retract the thing about these things being good at crash landing.
Well, he was unharmed.
Huh?
And the mail was
Going
trucked
at 6 miles an hour.
Yeah. And the mail was again trucked quietly to Bustleton Field.
So this guy, he was one of the ones with like political connections, right?
Yes, he was the son of the Interstate Commerce Commissioner.
Reasonable. Okay, so that's you got a good reason to cover this shit up.
Yeah.
The Post Office Department, again, asked Fleet for Boyle to be given a third chance.
No. Stop going south.
This time Fleet put his foot down. No. That was the first 3 days of Post Office / Army Air Service airmail. And Lieutenant Egerton, the other political appointment, to his credit, flew 52 trips in all weather with only one forced landing due to mechanical issues.
Jesus, all right. I guess it really does work at sourcing the like wheat from the chaff, though.
I was about to say, yeah. So on August 10th, 1918, the post office took over airmail properly, and that's when the system started expanding, right?
Sure.
Yes. So the USPS started airmail flights with their own aircraft, civilian pilots, USPS-owned purpose-built airplanes, right?
This seems like a good idea. Could they go north as well as south?
Well, they got rid of the New York to Washington airmail service pretty quickly because it was slow.
Pointless compared to a train.
Slower than the railroad, yeah. We'll talk about that in a bit.
I appreciate the error stamp here.
Yes. This is actually a very rare stamp, which shows the aircraft that Boyle flew.
Sick.
Because I was inverted.
It was a misprint, actually.
Wow.
But
he wasn't doing some Top Gun shit. That's a shame. I like it, though. It's quite like
bombing people with mail.
It's quite like futurist in a way, you know?
Yeah.
It's a fucking Daytona is happening here.
So they moved the DC area airmail operations to College Park, where Fleet wanted it in the first place, but then they discontinued it.
College Park is always ready to party, but in this case, to send mail.
They started scouting out areas where it could compete. The first obvious market was New York City to Chicago, right? And they did several months of Pathfinder flights, right? Which is, we have to just go scout out where these planes can fly.
And at this point, World War I, the original rationale for this program to be in existence, ends.
Yes.
Yes. But man's fascination with sending things through the air thankfully never ends. Not thankfully.
So New York to Chicago service, stopping in Bellefonte, Pennsylvania, Cleveland, Ohio.
Just Bellefonte, guy.
Is it Bellefonte?
Just Bellefonte. It's just Bellefonte, Roz.
Well, it sucks.
You got to say
Ohio.
as few vowels as possible in the name of a Pennsylvania town, I find.
Yeah. If it looks, just say it the way it's pronounced, except for Schuylkill, and then just make up your own rules.
Yes. Bryan, Ohio, and then on to Chicago. That was
Bryan, Ohio.
Bryan, Ohio.
Yeah. They also stopped by Brett's house. That's the Street Fight radio section of the airmail.
Yeah, Street Fight airmail.
So the New York to Chicago route was started by December 1918. Transcontinental air service was figured out by 1920, but the airmail still only traveled by air during the day, right? Because you couldn't fly at night because you couldn't see anything, right? So a lot of times the way this would work is, the airmail would go by air during the day and then be put on a train overnight, and then when it was daytime again, it got took off the train and it'd go back on the plane.
Just like adding steps to add steps.
It's very slightly faster.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
This is clearly worth me using a special stamp and putting it on a special cool bordered envelope.
I mean, special stamps are cool as hell.
I like an airmail envelope. The a like red and blue sort of striped thing. I think that looks neat.
Yeah, stamps are cool, man.
This is an official There's Your Problem recommendation. Collect stamps. Become a philatelist.
Yeah, so the attempts to really strictly adhere to the schedule were foiled by a wildcat pilot strike in July 1919.
Awesome.
Because
that's an excellent series of words.
Hell yeah.
They were they were forcing them to fly in horrible weather, and the pilots were just like, we're fucking being killed out here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So after that, airmail was only delivered in fair weather, right? But in the meantime, they slowly improved infrastructure for airmail, right? So you could fly at night once they installed big light towers along the route, right? They also put
like a lighthouse or a light ship.
Yes, or like the
that's cool.
Or like the big lanterns, the fires in Lord of the Rings, So
it's not like marking an airfield or anything. It's just like fly towards this one, then fly towards this one.
Yes, there was like a series of colorations, I believe, which would show you if this is an intermediate point or if this is an airfield, and it would blink in Morse code to tell you which.
What?
Yeah, it would blink in Morse code to tell you which one it was.
I mean, like, beacons still do this. I want to say VOR ones, but having to do that shit in your head, like freezing, bouncer, fuck that.
I regret to inform you, I'll be right back. Just go without me.
Actually,
that's...
I'm going to grab a backup beer then.
Yeah, I'm going to grab a third beer. You know what? Edit this shit out because I'm not helming this by myself.
Okay. All right. Fine. I'll poop my pants. What do you want to talk about, Alice? Alice? No, just leave? All right. I'll poop.
Hi, it's Justin. So this is a commercial for the podcast that you're already listening to. People are annoyed by these, so let me get to the point. We have this thing called Patreon, right? The deal is you give us $2 a month, and we give you an extra episode once a month. Sometimes it's a little inconsistent, but, it's $2. You get what you pay for. It also gets you our full back catalog of bonus episodes, so you can learn about exciting topics like guns, pickup trucks, or pickup trucks with guns on them. The money we raise through Patreon goes to making sure that the only ad you hear on this podcast is this one. Anyway, that's something to consider if you have $2 to spare each month. Join at patreon.com/WTYP pod. Do it if you want. Or don't. It's your decision, and we respect that. Back to the show. Aloha.
Aloha. We are a beer-loving podcast, and only one of us is supposed to feel bad about it.
Well, I mean, it is Ash Wednesday.
That's right. What does that like? I don't remember my Catholic ears very well. What does this mean?
Oh, Ash Wednesday is the one when you get the palms.
Oh yeah, you got to have the little like thing smudged on you. Yeah.
Yeah, you get the thing smudged on you. I was making a joke about the palms. It's the one of the two most attended masses.
Really?
The other one being Palm Sunday.
Gorgeous girls have gorgeous IBS.
You'd think Christmas, like midnight, your midnight mass, because my mom used to love midnight mass.
No,
but no.
Palm Sunday and Ash Wednesday are the most attended because they give you a thing.
People. That's the lesson to the modern church: is you got to give people a thing.
What are you guys talking about?
It's
We're
Ash
talking
Wednesday.
about Catholicism.
It is Ash Wednesday, yes.
I used to do that.
All right, so we're just talking about the
Oh, Roz,
light
I made you
towers.
fast nuts.
What?
I made you fast nuts.
I don't know what that is.
Jesus, this beer keeps fucking like the head of it
Fast
keeps
nuts
expanding out through
donuts,
the
Roz.
the
made them for
fucking
you.
neck of the bottle. It's obscene.
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking a Hobson's Brewery Company Shropstar Pale Ale. But the problem is with all of these, I've found, is that opening them, the head, like they're so overcarbonated that the head just keeps expanding. And it's done this, like, I've drank this off of here like 3 or 4 times and it keeps coming. It looks fucking penile as hell, let me say.
That could be a problem with the beer or a problem with how they stored the beer.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things that can cause that.
Absolutely. I mean, so if you know, write in. Also, sorry to God for drinking beer, but it tastes good.
The I also wanted to point out that Brian, Ohio here does have a Y, like Brian from Street Fight. So, okay, they installed, we talked about the light towers. They installed big concrete arrows for guidance during the day, right?
Ah, that's cool. You know, they do that with
sweet.
helicopters still, like particularly in Los Angeles. That's the thing, because the police helicopters will get lost otherwise. So they just have like reference things on, like, painted on the roofs of buildings, like this is, you know, such and such a grid square, so that you don't get lost and so you know where to reference things.
That's what happens when your entire city is 1-story bungalows.
That's true. Also reminding me of the guy, I'm going to misremember what cities these are, but the guy who is like lives under the approach to Cleveland Airport and painted "Welcome to Cincinnati" on his roof.
That's really funny.
Just knowing that you're a cause of anxiety in the world. Just putting that out into the fucking ether is very funny.
So planes became more sophisticated, more reliable. They were faster. By 1924, it only took 32 hours to ship a letter from San Francisco to New York City and only 34 hours to go the other way, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I joke, but that's fucking like impressive for the time.
Right?
Pretty good, yeah. And that was again, I think about all the stops they're making along the way to refuel and crap. It sort of ran like the Pony Express, you know, because the plane would land, they transfer the mail, that plane would fuel up, the other plane would take off. You repeat over and over again.
Really like working those planes to the point of destruction.
Yes. But this was a problem, which is that government was doing something well. So both political parties at this point were pretty fiscally conservative, right? You know, both Calvin Coolidge and John W. Davis, Republican and Democrat, respectively, campaigned on small government, limited regulation, so on and so forth.
Silent cow, baby.
Yeah. And then Senator Robert N. La Follette, who was the progressive / socialist / farmer labor candidate.
Minnesota, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. He campaigned on the opposite of that, and he won 13 electoral votes in Wisconsin. That was it. But Coolidge took the big prize, and Republican Congress soon went about directing the post office to contract out airmail routes, as well as other measures that would explode the economy in a couple of years, right?
Yeah, what if we made this all more speculative?
Yes.
What if we made this all based on like hokum and bullshit? This is not related at all to Web3 or the metaverse or anything like that.
No, what if instead of the government doing it, some guys with a plane did it?
Yeah, what if that?
So contracting out airmail service, it was reasoned, right, would be a cheap and easy way to rapidly build out the air transportation network, right?
You think it's going to be like railroads, you know? You're going to give it to like 4 guys in waistcoats and watch fobs, and they're going to obtain the right of way by hook or by crook, and mostly by crook, and then you can come in and like it makes sense.
Yes.
We're going to get 500 Chinese guys to dynamite through this cloud.
Yeah.
And then we're going to deport all of them, and it's going to work perfectly.
Exactly. Well, in practice, it was tough to find people to run the routes, right? Because a lot of airlines were just a guy with a plane.
Weird Bill is
Weird
not
Bill and his
himself an
weird
airline.
plane.
Yeah, exactly.
Subsidies for moving the mail were extremely high, about $3 per pound per 1,000 miles, right?
Jesus.
So it was uneconomical to haul passengers, which is one of the intentions of this legislation, is you'd have passenger air travel as well, but you need to charge about $500 a seat to break even.
Can't imagine that.
But that's $500 $1920s too.
Okay, yeah, point taken. That's kind of how much passenger air travel should kind of cost now if we're factoring in the climate, right?
This is true, yeah. Now this structure incentivized the airlines to move as much mail as possible, right? The more mail you move, the more money you get. And the subsidy was higher than the postage. So naturally, they all found buddies in the junk mail business.
Yes, mailing nothing to nobody for no reason.
And they shipped large quantities of junk mail by air and then split the profits. Right?
This is a truly American story.
Yes.
I have nothing but admiration.
Or they'd artificially weigh down the mail. Or they shipped bulky objects by mail. One airline was fond of mailing a cast iron stove back and forth.
Yeah, open my junk mail and I'm like, honey, it's bricks again.
There was a situation like that in I want to say Butte, Montana. The Anaconda, Butte, and something railroad wound up in a situation where the post office was giving them a massive subsidy for the mail service, and one of the directors took that opportunity to mail a building. One brick at a time.
I prefer to think of it intact, like throwing some kind of a massive thing of packing sheets over it and putting a single stamp on the door.
It's a whole new meeting for building envelope. Did we lose Liam?
I think so. I think he may be pooping right now.
Oh.
Nonetheless, we continue. Vai avanti.
Yeah. Now, despite this windfall profits, these same aircraft operators usually undercapitalized and operating on low margins, right? They're unwilling or unable to afford new aircraft and equipment, so the airmail remained slow, expensive, and uncompetitive with railroads, right?
It's a joke, and also, like, you have to figure a bunch of these pilots are getting killed, right?
Oh, yeah.
All the time. Sorry, I just got a phone call telling me I didn't get a job.
Oh, well. Sorry to hear about that.
They did the whole, like, we really liked you, and I'm just like, not enough.
No, apparently not that much.
I'm putting the call out here now. Hire Liam.
Hire Liam for your job.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I need to health insurance beyond what we have because my health insurance blows ass, and I don't know, just frustrated, but I'm good. I'm sorry, I've been in and out.
I've been missing calls.
All right, where are we? I apologize.
We are talking about mailing cast iron stoves back and forth in order to own the government.
In terms of making things heavier than air flight, that's a quick way to do it. I will say that.
So anyway, there's over 45 airlines maintaining the skeletal system of airmail routes. And, you know, this is like most fiscally conservative government policies. The privatization of airmail was expensive, inefficient, rife with corruption, and just generally didn't work very well.
It's important to note at this point, there are absolutely no parallels to anything else here.
So this next slide is kind of an aside, but I think it does demonstrate sort of the airmail environment, the air freight environment, and what the railroads can do.
Yeah. Shout out to the guys. The me and the boys after COVID.
Yeah, me and the boys after COVID right here with Pennsylvania Railroad 460. Charles Lindbergh, hero of the United States and Nazi.
And killed his own kid.
He was like the biggest, like the most famous American other than the president for like.
Wait a damn second. This is the Lindbergh engine, right?
Yes.
That's
what we're going to talk about.
Oh, I was so excited I knew what the Lindbergh engine was.
there is a halfway plausible alternative history by Philip Roth, which posits him becoming president
it's a terrific
of the US.
book, The Plot Against America. Highly recommend it. The E6 is a more beautiful locomotive than anything the New York Central could have ever dreamt up, and I will be hearing no criticisms.
I'm
You're
a big fan of the E6.
You're
E6 is
insane.
a beautiful locomotive.
E6 is a good looking one, yeah.
Both of you are insane. You both have train madness. I am backing against the door. I have like a revolver in my hand. I can't trust either of you anymore.
Oh, 460 is a beaut too. You can go see her.
Yeah, it's in the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. So anyway, yeah, Charles Lindbergh flew the Spirit of St. Louis from New York City to Paris nonstop on May 27th, 1927. Right? Say he's the first guy to fly across the ocean. Actually, not the first guy to fly across the ocean, but the first guy to fly from New York City to Paris. Because a couple people had flown from like St. John, Newfoundland to Dublin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he flew around Europe for a while. He met all these tremendous crowds. He was awarded a bunch of distinguished national awards. Came back to the United States, boarded the USS Memphis.
Almost single-handedly created the sort of mythology of the pilot as a modern knight of the sky.
Yes. On June 11th, he arrived at the Washington Navy Yard. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross by Coolidge, blah, 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 blah. I don't care.
Didn't invest in childcare very much.
Yes.
Ooh.
But it was a big, big media event, right? And all the newsreel companies wanted to be the first to get their newsreels to theaters in New York City. And by this point, newsreel companies generally chartered flights for this purpose. But Universal International Newsreel, which is, I think, a Randolph Hearst company, they decided to pull a stunt.
I love how at any point in the 20th century, I guess it's still true now, but so few people do it. You could just sit down and you could open your pocket watch and you could look at the time and you could say, okay, let's do some silly bullshit.
Yes.
I mean, what is this entire endeavor but silly bullshit?
What indeed?
You're getting carpet bombed with mail. Like, at some point, things are not going well for you.
I thought you meant the podcast.
No, I get carpet bombed with mail when I open the goddamn P.O. box.
Send me my shit, Liam.
You know what? No, I'm not gonna. It's mine now.
Oh.
So while the rest of the newsreel companies were racing to the airport, to the probably College Park Airport, to get the newsreels onto planes, UI's film guys arrived at Washington Union Station by car. They ran through the concourse and onto the train on track 8, right? And this was the Pennsylvania Railroad had provided a train composed of one baggage express car and one coach and E6 Atlantic type number 460. That's the locomotive.
This is the thing I'll say about the Pennsylvania Railroad, right?
If you insult the E6, we're going to fight.
No. This is one thing I'll say in its favor compared to the New York Central is that the Pennsylvania Railroad never saw an opportunity to do some dumb shit it didn't like.
Yes.
Right?
Oh,
this was a railroad that was incorporated with the word send it. Like
So the train set off. It reached 95 miles an hour before it left the city limits.
See?
Yeah. In Delaware, they clocked it at 115 miles an hour. It only slowed down for curves and tunnels. The train only made one stop because after taking on water at speed from a track pan, the water scoop in the tender broke. So they had to stop in Wilmington for water.
That's incredible.
So
Send it.
460 and the Lindbergh Special, as it was called, reached Manhattan Transfer in 2 hours and 50 minutes, which is about the same schedule as the fastest Acela Express today.
I hate this country.
Progress.
Yes. At one point, a plane chartered by a rival newsreel company paced the train and then sped off into the distance after dipping its wings, right? The plane had made it there quicker. But International Universal had the last laugh. The baggage express car behind 460 was no ordinary baggage express car. It was a mobile darkroom and film editing studio car.
Yes. Fuck, that rules.
So they took the newsreel, they developed the film en route. They edited the film. They installed all the silent movie, cards and all that crap. and they duplicated it into 10 reels. So despite arriving in New York City later than the chartered planes, International Universal's newsreels were in New York theaters a full hour before the competition. Yeah, in the 20s, chartered air freight could compete with the railroads in extraordinary circumstances. But where does that leave, scheduled airmail, right? It was still kind of, this is kind of a grift, right? There's not a lot of stuff that needs to move that quickly at this point. It's only economical over long distances, and the airlines are undercapitalized. They're unreliable. The airplanes are unreliable. And it's not a great situation for airmail because it's such a niche market at this point.
Yeah, and the only thing that would really save chartered air freight, a scheduled airmail at this point, would be either massive governmental intervention or everybody in the country somehow believing that they have access to a small parcel of something they've ordered the previous day.
Yes.
Luckily, this will never happen.
But one man came to the rescue.
Oh, no.
Herbert Hoover.
Oh.
Herbert Hoover has never come to anybody's rescue.
What a bastard.
This is an anti-Hoover podcast.
Yeah. Hoover's Postmaster General, William Folger Brown, wanted to increase the efficiency of the private airmail system. So he retained a guy who had been Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Aeronautics named William McCracken Jr., who's now a private lawyer at this point. They two plotted together to figure out how do we make this more efficient, right? And the idea was very simple. If you have large airlines, they can deliver mail cheaper with bigger, newer, and more reliable planes.
You're doing fucking British railway stuff in a weirder timeline where you're first we privatize it and then we consolidate it.
So yeah, it's even it was even the big four, the consolidation in the end. But yeah, so McCracken and Brown gathered the larger airlines together for what became known as the spoils conferences, right? To divvy up routes and rates and structure what was to become the Airmail Act of 1930.
And design a shitload of really cool posters.
Oh yeah. Now, these large airlines didn't really exist yet, but this is sort of where the structure was determined and who was going to buy what, so on and so forth, right? So I think one that's notable, of course, William Boeing of Boeing Aircraft and Frederick Rensher of Pratt & Whitney, right?
Boo! You sons of bitches.
They initiate a series of hostile takeovers even before the Spoils Conference to create a full transatlantic airline, which is also fully integrated with the aircraft manufacturing business, called United Aircraft and Transportation Company, right? And that was Boeing Aircraft, Sikorsky Aircraft, Pratt
they're
& Whitney.
Breaking your guitar from that day to this.
Yes.
Losing your luggage, getting you circling over Newark Airport for no reason. For 2 extra hours.
Yeah.
This is where it all began. It's United Airlines.
Well, I'm still a customer, unfortunately.
Yeah, you can't not be, I guess.
I'm not going to fly a low cost airline. That's
Don't do it.
What are you not a podcaster?
My dignity's worth more than that.
No, it isn't. But it's not. But still don't fly Spirit.
Yeah. So so they created, that was the most ambitious organization. It was a full vertically integrated monopoly. Brown didn't like this because it happened before the Airmail Act and not after when it was supposed to happen. But the act still passed and Brown's consolidation plan went forward. So 24 of the 27 airmail contracts at this point were in control of just 3 airlines, which were United Aircraft and Transportation, right? The Transcontinental and Western Airline, TWA.
TWA.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
And American Airways, right? Ignore that it says airlines down here. That'll be relevant later. TWA Transcontinental and Western had actually been formed by Brown, just strong arming a bunch of airlines that didn't want to merge into merging.
Now kiss.
Yeah. There was actually a fun aside here. Transcontinental Airways or Airlines, or no, it was Transcontinental Air Transportation, had the first transcontinental route, right? But it only flew during the day. And in the night, you would transfer to a train.
Oh, okay.
And
That sounds like cheating.
And then when you woke up, you get back on the plane. So, and that was why, their acronym was TAT. And a lot of people said TAT stands for take a train. So the Airmail Act also had another provision, which is contracts would be based on space for mail on the planes rather than by item or by weight of mail carried, right? So airlines would now be more incentivized to carry passengers rather than create mail and transport it.
Rather than a shitload of ovens.
Yes.
Bricks, things of this nature.
So this consolidation plan worked pretty good. It halved airmail costs per mile. It increased reliability. These bigger companies were able to invest in better aircraft, right? Better pilots, better training, more ground-based infrastructure. And you even have stuff like radio beacons at this point for like instrument flying, right? It also really pissed a lot of people off who owned smaller airlines.
Well, there's at least like 24 of them, right?
Yeah. So Charles Townsend Ludington and Amelia Earhart started Ludington Airline in 1929 to run hourly passenger flights between Camden Central Airport, which is right by where that's Camden, New Jersey, right by where the shopping center with the restaurant equippers and the Harbor Freight is, right? They flew between there and Newark, New Jersey, right? Which that airport's still in the same spot. And Washington Airport, which is now where the Pentagon is.
Also had a really cool poster. Look at the fucking lines on this shit. I'm into it.
That's really cool.
This is interesting because Ludington was, as far as I can tell, the sort of proper Philadelphia airline. This was the airline run by the same Philadelphia Protestants running the Pennsylvania Railroad. So, they were going to run hourly flights, right? Every hour on the hour, as the poster says. And they had great service, frequent service, strong profits, even in the Depression. They couldn't get a mail contract, right? Even after they significantly underbid, the current owner of the contract, which was Eastern Air Transport, right?
Blatant favoritism and corruption.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ludington bid 25 cents a mile, and Eastern Air Transport bid 89 cents a mile.
Oh, Jesus.
This was Ludington's bid probably would have lost money, but it was based on Eugene Vidal's. Eugene Vidal was father of Gore Vidal and a executive on Ludington. He believed airmail was going to get so big that 25 cents a mile we'll be making that money back in like a year or so.
Yeah, you do it as a loss leader.
It's a loss leader and to show a confidence in the airmail system, right? But yeah, they couldn't get the contract, and Eastern Air Transport subsequently bankrupted Ludington and acquired its assets in 1933, right?
You motherfuckers.
Which is, again, all according to Brown's plan, right? Small airlines.
Another dignity done to the people of Philadelphia.
Yes. Small airlines would be shut out, swallowed up by bigger ones.
Guys, I think I might be a libertarian now.
Wow.
I don't think the libertarians liked Hoover. Small government, big business. The reporter for William Randolph Hearst heard this story while talking to an ex-Ludington executive. He investigated it further, and when he published it, Senator Hugo Black of Alabama took interest.
Uh-oh.
Right?
Oh, boy.
No. Interstate Commerce Commission hearings and a special Senate committee that was controlled by Democrats essentially investigating the Republican Hoover administration, managed to find not very much actual substantiated evidence of fraud or collusion, right?
Actually, by this point, Hugo Black, he disassociated from the Klan in 1925. Well, yeah, he was anti-Catholic. He resigned from the Klan in 1925 because he gets appointed to the Supreme Court for being a tremendously loyal New Dealer in 37.
They threw him out of the Klan because of his last name.
Yeah, they were just like, no blacks allowed, literally, figuratively.
So other than the 2 contracts for the 2 transcontinental lines awarded to TWA and American Airways, right?
Yeah.
But it was an election year, right? Democrats felt they really needed to play this thing up. So they held hearings. They called up McCracken, the lawyer from before, right? Brought up to testify his capacity as an airline lawyer. And McCracken cited attorney-client privilege and refused to testify. And then also
Shut the fuck up Friday.
Shut the fuck up Friday, yeah. Also allowed one of his clients to remove and destroy documents which were under subpoena.
You're not supposed to do that. I know Alice probably knows that better than I do, but
that's all contained.
Opinion.
Yes,
I think it was a guy from Northwest Airlines.
I would say that is still contained within the provisions of "Shut the fuck up Friday" as burning subpoenaed documents.
Well, he said it was a personal document and should not be.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Unburn it? Fuck off!
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, we're talking about Northwest Airlines of DB Cooper fame, right?
Yeah, it was a long time later, though. This is
yes, Roz. DB Cooper wasn't in the 30s.
Well, okay.
Well, he might have been alive in the 30s.
I just want to make sure we don't confuse our listeners.
Sorry, listeners.
When was DB Cooper born? What'd you say?
Well, we don't know, right? I mean,
well, no, you got to have an
40s?
idea of like roughly.
40s?
You think so?
Wasn't he like in his 40s?
Isn't that the air?
We're gonna fucking solve this DB Cooper shit. I feel.
I always loved the idea of once we branch out into true crime and working ass backwards, we solve all the true crimes.
That's right. Stay sexy and don't get murdered. I hate true crime.
Yep, we do a true crime podcast where we make it as boring as possible and just solve everything. Remove the mystique. Really ruin the lives of women everywhere.
You know what?
I've been doing that for a while.
Yeah, hard same. I understand that, like, you know what? I don't understand true crime podcasts, but I guess people listen to this, which is sort of in the same
it's exciting
vein,
to feel like you might get murdered and to like give yourself an anxiety disorder. I got mine for free, but
same.
It is exhilarating, so I guess I understand.
I mean, that's what autoerotic asphyxiation is for. Or in his case, autoerotic asphyxiation.
Our podcast does not describe you being brutally murdered by a person, but rather the system.
Senseless, unseen corporation. Sure.
Yeah, what we're doing is true crime, but for social murder.
Exactly.
Oh, that's spicy. I like that.
Yeah, stay sexy and don't get social murdered.
So, McCracken was tried for contempt of Congress and convicted. And after a couple of years of appeals, he spent 10 days in jail.
Oh, feels like it would have just been easier to go to jail.
Yeah. And this, along with a couple of economic problems that happened near the end of Hoover's administration.
I've heard of these.
Yeah.
These are pretty well known from what I understand.
Was enough for Hoover to lose, right? So Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Assistant Secretary to the Navy, was elected.
Yeah, Bill.
Fucking pink social democrat ass. We could have had corrupt Huey Long communism in America. Every single one of you listening in the United States would to this day have a no-show job which paid obscene amounts of money that like was owned by one of Huey Long the 19th's cousins. There would be 27 Supreme Court justices who would pass everything you had ever wanted, all named Long.
I did really like that point you made, Alice, some time ago, which was that Roosevelt basically did just enough to forestall revolution.
Yeah, that was his thing, right? That was the thing. You have to hold the United States together, and we know by this point that you should not try and hold the United States together because it's a terrible, benighted nation. And the way that you do that is you give people just enough, and it still didn't stop the capitalists from trying to fucking assassinate him. But
I think if FDR had lived longer, you would have had a different situation. Just because, during World War II, he and Stalin got along like a house on fire.
The point at the Yalta conference,
de Gaulle, which I learned.
He and Stalin were like just hanging out and freezing out Churchill, and Churchill was just getting furious. There was a serious possibility that having delivered, victory and peace, he could have, I don't know, done something more intense, but he never did because he died. So
unfortunately,
because he was killed by the CIA.
Yes.
Because the CIA didn't exist then, because he was killed by the OSS. Wild Bill Donovan personally shot FDR.
Crazy how no one talks about this. Of course,
you should start believing this.
Yeah, they hit him with the polio gun.
That's right. Yeah. He was walking up until like the last days of the war, and then
that is how it happened. Famously, of course,
took him out. Yeah.
FDR was elected. He and Postmaster General James A. Farley of the Farley Post Office in New York City.
New York City. Yeah.
Now part of Penn Station.
Yeah. Everything
also
eventually was part of Penn Station.
Headquarters of the Strategic Homeland Division.
I don't know what that is.
I'm referencing a Tom Clancy game called The Division.
Great, could have been a great game.
Yeah,
could have been. Had its moments.
They decided that despite the fact that much of the Black Commission's findings were a lot of hot air, the scandal was big enough and bad enough that they needed to do something to show that they were doing something.
Yes, something must be seen to be done.
Yes. Well, Roosevelt said, all right, we'll cancel all existing airmail contracts as quickly as possible and re-award them, right? On June 1st, 1934. Now, this is in February of same year, February 9th, right? Roosevelt and Farley needed to come up with an interim solution. Secretary of War George H. Dern mentioned the Army Air Corps could probably do it, right?
We're back to square one.
Yeah. So Dern hadn't actually asked anyone if they could actually do that, but he had a meeting with the chief of the Air Corps, Major General Benjamin Fowlis.
Foulois?
I like Fowlis. Fowlis. I'm going with Fowlis.
Foulois mentioned offhandedly that, we could probably be ready in about a week or 10 days. Now, what Foulois had assumed here was that the executive order to hand over the mail contracts would take a while to actually come down, and they could be ready about a week or 10 days after that, and that most of the mail would, just go by train anyway, right? It would
be the same kind of like silly bullshit as the first time the Army Air Corps or its predecessors had tried to do this.
So after this meeting, he directed his staff to form a plan to carry the mail, then realized he probably ought to notify Chief of Staff General Douglas MacArthur about this development, right?
Oh, no.
As he was about to do that, a very angry General Douglas MacArthur burst into his office, demanding to know
pipe first.
demanding to know more about what he had just heard from a reporter, which was that Roosevelt had just canceled all the airmail contracts, and that on February 19th, 10 days from now, the Army Air Corps would handle all the mail.
And then MacArthur, to demonstrate his anger, shot a child. That probably ate that child.
There are some cool photos of like specimen envelopes that they intended to deliver first using this, where it's like there's one of them with the cool Army Air Corps roundel on it, the dot and the star. The Army delivers the mail, and it's like, I love Rooseveltian social democracy.
This is Foulois here, the guy, not the planes.
He was actually a plane.
Yeah. So,
That's
despite
why
the
they gave him that job. He looked so much like a plane.
yeah, there you go. So, despite the waste in the private airmail system, right, the economics had forced airlines to improve technology, right? Your airmail planes, they're large, they're fast, they can fly in all weather conditions, right? They had sophisticated instruments for flying in low visibility and radio for communication, right? The pilots were experienced, they'd flown all the routes many, many times over, and the airmail schedules required flights in all weather at all times. And that was, a routine achievement, right?
Hmm.
The Army Air Corps did not have those things.
No, you see, they have like a sort of a prototype fighter and a prototype, like, I guess, bomber here.
Yes. I mean, they were recovering from years of systemic underfunding by the Coolidge and Hoover administrations. They had planes, which were mostly trainers and fighters, right? They had pilots who only trained in daylight, in clear weather, close to their air bases.
Love the idea of resurrecting this program and you get your mail via F-35.
Yeah, it's about as reliable as this is.
I can't believe it didn't work.
Yeah, your Amazon package has not arrived because it rained in an airbase in Guam, and that fucked up the sensors on a fucking B-2 Spirit, which has now crashed and incinerated your package.
Your package
We
arrives.
apologize for the inconvenience.
Your package arrives on a Stinger missile with the warhead replaced by the package.
That is prompt delivery, I'll tell you that.
I mean, I guess it beats my other fun mail delivery system, which is the surface launch thing of rocket mail.
Rocket mail.
Right. Yes.
I love rocket mail. Rocket mail only exists in stamps commemorating it now, but the idea was much as you would think. It was kind of the Navy's attempt. Round about the first instance of the Army trying to get into mail happened, the Navy just decided, hey, what if we just fired rockets full of mail at cities?
Intercontinental ballistic mail.
Exactly.
Doesn't Elon Musk want to use the Starship for that crap?
God,
he had that whole thing, we're gonna you'll be able to go from anywhere to anywhere in 45 minutes.
The thing about Elon Musk is that he's
Hey, I'm not getting bleed for once. This is a new development.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, 250 pilots were assigned to the Army Air Corps Mail Operation, the AACMO.
Wow, that is a big ass. The gender reaffirming. Gender affirming, I should say, not reaffirming. No, stay awake, motherfucker.
Yes.
I will do to you what the Wehrmacht did, and I will take off your eyelids.
Oh my god!
Jesus,
fantastic. 140 of these pilots had less than 2 years of experience.
You're actually threatening a Polish man, a POC, with
a pop.
Yeah, a person of Polish experience with torture right now.
The Pope.
Yeah.
His Holiness the Pope, Ross?
I mean, you can't say
that was John Paul II.
Yeah, John Paul II was a person of Polish experience.
Ross, you could be Pope. I believe in you. You'd
have to get it by Pope.
Yeah, you wouldn't be half bad, and you could get it by acclamation, right?
You'd be the kind of Pope. You'd be like the John Paul I kind of Pope who just gets pushed down the stairs a week in.
Listen, I wouldn't push it down the stairs.
I just want to say, any cardinals listening to this podcast, vote for me.
It would be funny. It would be funny. Come on.
Your Eminences, have you considered Justin Rosniak?
And if whoever does do it, they're a pussy.
That's right. That's true.
But now they can't back down.
I mean, listen, if fucking Zelensky can become president of Ukraine off of a joke, why can't you become Pope off of one?
Good point.
That's a good point.
Anyway, 104 of these pilots for the ACMO had less than 2 years of experience.
How many? I missed that.
104.
104
thank you.
Out of 250 total.
Yeah. Ooh, okay.
Only 31 had more than 50 hours of nighttime flying.
Ooh, that feels worse.
Only 48 had more than 25 hours of flying in bad weather.
I'm trying to work out how all of these intersect, and it's in my head. It's just coming back to one guy.
Only
it's not
two.
good, I can tell you that.
Only two had more than 50 hours of instrument time.
Oh, I was right. I was right.
And most of them were reservists, right? Now, they dedicated 122 aircraft to ACMO. Few of them had landing lights, navigation lights, or even lights in the cockpit.
Don't need a mad's weight.
Very few of them had radios.
Add weight.
None of them had instruments,
Adds weight.
including things like an artificial horizon.
Yeah, adds weight. Were you not listening?
Yeah.
So, you're just drifting off, of course.
Falloy doubled down, right? He said to Congress on February 14th.
Listen, if you can't believe in your subordinates, what kind of manager are you?
Yeah. We have assigned to this work the most experienced pilots in the Army Air Service, he said. We've had a great deal of experience in flying at night and flying in fogs and bad weather, in blind flying and flying under all other conditions.
This was flatly a lie.
Yeah, this is true, right?
Yes. We have not had the actual experience of flying over these scheduled routes, but we feel that after 3 or 4 days of preliminary flying over those routes, we shall experience no difficulty in maintaining the regular schedules.
I'm not sure how much I like the put me in coach approach to aviation.
About 2 days later, 3 airmail pilots were killed on familiarization flights in Utah and Idaho.
That'll do it.
That'll happen.
That's tough.
Now, Falloy, to his credit, ordered a program to fit all planes assigned to ACMO with instruments like artificial horizons and radios. But there were no mechanics trained on how to install them. And pilots were not trained in how to use them.
You just get in, there's a loose altimeter lying on the seat, and you're just like, great, I've got this now.
Wow. Why is it still at 0? So the ACMO was going to run reduced service, right? 17 routes covering 11,000 miles. Now, on February 18th, right before the, right before ACMO was going to start, Eddie Rickenbacker from Eastern Air Transport and Jack Fire from TWA pulled a stunt, right?
Again, look at the time. It's time to do some silly bullshit.
Yes, they flew their prototype DC-1.
Preston Lacey and Wee Man.
They flew their prototype DC-1 clear across the country with fare-paying passengers and mail in 13 hours, smashing the previous record by 5 hours. The DC-1 was essentially the prototype for the DC-3. Now, the following day, February 19th, the first airmail flights took off and ran straight into a blizzard that crossed the whole damn country. Most flights were canceled. People who flew did make it to their destinations, though, generally speaking. On February 22, 2 planes crashed, killing the pilots and destroying the aircraft.
Your mail has been incinerated along with a guy.
The next day, another plane crashed and sank, drowning a passenger.
Gee.
This has happened within the first week.
Yes, within the first 3. I mean, the first fatalities were before the program started. The most vocal opponent of the ACMO scheme was hero of the nation and Nazi Charles Lindbergh.
Hero of the nation, Nazi, potential child murderer, impossible to tell. Can't sue us.
Yeah, it's true. He's dead.
Mm-hmm.
He sure is.
He was a pedophile.
Yeah.
Was he?
No, but I can say it.
Right.
You can say it, yeah.
He was a pedophile. Alice, I do know that to be true.
Absolutely. From knowledge and belief.
Charles Lindbergh.
Keep it together, man. I gotta get you some coffee.
I had a solid night's sleep last night.
How much coffee have you had?
I haven't had any coffee.
What?
No, that's your problem.
What?
That might be it, yeah. Charles Lindbergh.
I've seen... Okay, you know what? No, it's fine.
Charles Lindbergh acted as a spokesman for the airline industry, which of course he had quite a large financial stake in. And his criticism of the scheme appeared in every major newspaper. Additionally, Eddie Rickenbacker of Eastern Air Transport, also a war hero, also hated the New Deal.
A lot of those guys going around, thus the plot against America, but also like the real life business plot and stuff.
Yeah, and he called ACMO legalized murder.
Okay, guy.
It's funny how these guys can discover the concept of social murder when it suits them.
Yes. Well, legalized murder was the phrase that really stuck in the press, right? Now, by March 9th, 10 pilots were dead, and ACMO was already in shambles, right? One of their biggest issue was paying people and also getting like physically getting the money there.
Paying people? Weren't they the army? Wasn't there already a pay corps? Like,
well, here's the issue is you are flying out of all these new airfields that are not controlled by the army, right? You are doing maintenance in all these locations as well. The pilots have to they have to sort of be able to go to the store and buy shit. It was really difficult setting up like the pay structure here. I should have devoted more time to this. I didn't because it was a huge problem in the beginning, but it also meant that they couldn't procure things for like safety devices for the planes, like for instance thermometers, so when the plane has iced wings and is unsafe to fly. Now the other thing is very few of the planes were actually suitable for carrying mail, right? They were mostly fighters and trainers with seats removed and baggage compartments added, which made the planes unbalanced and difficult to control, right?
Got all this mail like
Last
sliding around in the back.
Shit. Yeah.
Army pilots who were lucky enough to have a plane with correctly installed instruments often chose not to use them.
Okay. Sure. You know what? Sure.
Instead of relying on instruments, they would simply fly below bad weather and rely on visual navigation. Right?
Oh, no, that's some fucking like William Langevischer kind of like just fly the damn airplane ass kind of conservatism. Morons.
None of the instruments in the planes were installed consistently, right? So you wouldn't, if you were flying a different aircraft, it may be the same model aircraft, but maybe your artificial horizon is somewhere else, or the altimeter is somewhere else, or maybe you got maybe the radio is installed on the other side. So nothing was familiar to pilots. You had to familiarize yourself with the aircraft.
I feel like hand built is not good in terms of aviation.
It's a small batch artisanal plane.
Yes.
Of course.
Now, despite this, by the middle of March, most of the mail was being delivered on time.
Jesus.
That's
not bad.
I guess early March, after some of the last fatalities. But it was still a scandal from Roosevelt, right? Who summoned Falloy and MacArthur to the White House on March 10th. Falloy recounts in his autobiography, for the next 10 minutes, MacArthur and I received a tongue lashing which I put down in my book as the worst I ever received in all my military service.
He sucked them off?
Kind of weird, but okay, dude.
That's strange.
Sure.
There was no doubt that what bothered Roosevelt the most was severe criticism his administration was getting over the contract cancellation. He did not seem genuinely concerned or even interested in the difficulties the Air Corps was having.
He was a Navy guy. Why the fuck does he give a shit about like airplanes?
Yeah, just put the mail on a ship like an adult. In response to this, Falloy grounded the aircraft for 10 days, right? When the planes started flying again March 19th, the schedule was again cut back to, it was now 8 routes and much less flying at night. They lost another pilot on March 17th in a training flight.
Yeah, just really like once again, like corkscrewing in.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Republicans in Congress had finally found something to pin on the overwhelmingly popular New Deal Roosevelt administration, right?
Yeah, we don't have to just kill him. We can like
social murder him.
It's important, I think, important context here that no ordinary person is sending anything by airmail. This is still kind of a niche operation. But the newspapers covered the scandal relentlessly. There are congressional inquiries. And the ACMO was, ruthlessly pilloried despite, the safety record improving significantly after the March grounding. Pretty soon there were temporary contracts with commercial airlines supplementing ACMO service. Meanwhile, Senator Hugo Black and Dennis McKellar began drafting up a new airmail bill.
There's a future in which like libs. I mean, think about how much they would enjoy getting their mail delivered by the army, right?
Yes,
They'd love that shit.
Imagine if the mail truck was in camo and had big tires.
Absolutely.
And was less reliable. So the Airmail Act of 1934 proposed new competitive bidding rules for airmail contracts. It prohibited airline contracts from bidding on those routes entirely. Particularly, it targeted United Aircraft and Transport Company. You may remember was the only one that was not found to have corrupt ties.
Gotcha.
So the airlines most affected, all the airlines were prohibited from bidding, right? What they did is they reorganized under new names.
Well, that's clever.
So American Airways became American Airlines.
That's the reason why there's no consistency between airways and airlines.
Yeah,
and that's why you have like 3 different flag carriers.
Eastern Air Transport became Eastern Airlines.
TWA
added Incorporated to the end of its name.
They
all won back their old roots. UATC, however, was divided into United Aircraft, Boeing Aircraft, and United Airlines. Despite being the only airline which fairly won the transcontinental route, it was cut out entirely from airmail contracts.
Lie, cheat, steal. Everybody's doing it.
The long-term effect of the airmail scandal was to drive airlines away from mail transport as a core business, right? They focused primarily on passenger transportation.
A disaster for the climate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The effect on Roosevelt's popularity and the popularity of the New Deal in full only suffered temporarily.
God, imagine if he used any of that like absorbent ability of his successors to do anything more communist.
Yeah, I know, right? The scandal was soon forgotten to basically everyone except those in the airline business, right, who remained bitter for decades. Amco's last notable flight occurred May 8th, 1934. They just had brand new B-10 bombers delivered. And they covered the distance from Oakland, California to Newark, New Jersey in 15 hours, right? Just an hour slower than Rickenbacker, and while covering more miles and making more stops, right? The operation dissolved entirely except for one route, which was Chicago to Fargo, North Dakota on May 17th. That route was the last one handed over on June 1st. Major General Benjamin Falloy, under fire from a congressional investigation, retired from the Army Air Corps.
Oh, well. All he did was get a couple of guys killed, which for a major general, I mean...
Yeah, that's underperforming, really.
That's your job.
Yeah.
The airmail operation accounted for 12% of the Air Corps' flying hours in 1934, yet it registered 31% of the fatal accidents. The Air Corps itself reformed training programs after this point to include simulator training, instrument training, and more bad weather flight experience. If you look up an old-timey flight simulator, it's a pretty wacky device. Because literally it's like just a miniature plane, and there's like hydraulics hooked up to the instruments, and it like pitches back and forth, and then there's like a matte painting of the sky around you.
Oh man, I'm just reading about this. Foulois, they didn't even offer him anything back when World War II broke out. He spent the whole war in civil defense in New Jersey.
Oh my God.
The indignity of it all.
Yeah.
This also proved the obsolescence of open cockpit planes. So they stopped buying new ones, which they still had been doing up to this time.
Good for that, man.
Yeah. Lessons from the airmail scandal, or the airmail fiasco, as I believe it's known in military circles, proved important for the United States Army Air Force in World War II, resulting in pilots with more experience flying in more weather conditions. And the subsequent Berlin airlift, of course, proved the Air Force's capacity to actually transport stuff. We figured it out eventually.
Yeah, it's a straight line from like this plane upside down in the field to like the military airlift command.
Yeah. Airmail as a different level of mail service was ended in 1975.
You mean I've been buying those fancy envelopes for nothing?
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, no, today most mail travels by air wherever possible. Yeah. Not
So
special
Royal Mail
anymore.
has those cool trains.
That's true. We don't do that was another weird effect is that well, I don't think it was directly because of the airmail scandal, but the USPS did stop sending mail by train like about a decade later. It's all trucks and planes now. Everything's trucks and planes.
We have a couple of like Royal Mail operated Class 325 trains, which
Sweet.
If you'll indulge me, are notable because the number of each car is noted in a different font than it otherwise would be. It's in Royal Mail's corporate font. It's in a Castellan font.
Oh, that's cool.
So you can kind of tell if you were in doubt beside the giant red Royal Mail livery. And I always thought those were really cool.
Oh, or I figured out how to privatize it eventually. And the airmail scandal, I think, is sort of largely forgotten to history, but it did become the name of a scenario in the Urban Games title Transport Fever, which, of course,
the game that I break with mods, and then I did like, well, that doesn't really narrow it down, but one of the games that I break with mods and then can't play.
And of course, this scenario, like most scenarios in that game, bore no resemblance to actual events, and the only actual tangential relationship to history was that they did mention hero of the nation and Nazi Charles Lindbergh.
Well, that's why you got to mod it, is because like as it comes, it's just like a grab bag of like weird transport things they thought it would be cool to model. There's nothing systematic about it.
Yeah, I have a friend who mentioned, the main problem with Transport Fever is they forgot to add the fun.
Yeah. Listen, I'll make my own fun, but you got to give me some like more trains and planes.
Give me a little bit
like,
to start. You got to give me something to start out with. I mean,
give me a sense of place is what I want. Give me some like trains from like Britain, so I'm not using Swiss ones in my fake Britain map.
You have to have a special kind of autism to get into that game.
You don't have autism.
I know, right? Well, I guess I have a special one that didn't show up on the tests.
Mega autism.
Yes.
Hyper autism.
Rostism.
Yes.
Just called being a nerd. We're just appropriating the language of autism. It's true. That is true.
I don't think I have autism.
I don't know. I do like imaginative play and shit. I don't know. None of us might be autistic. All of us might be autistic. Self-diagnosis is weird, but if you want me to stop self-diagnosing, you should probably fund my nation's healthcare system so someone can diagnose me for real.
Give her healthcare. Also, we're not trying to be ableist here. Sorry if we came off that way.
There's a lesson here, I think, about rapid nationalization of stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, you should do it.
Well, yes, but I don't think you can't just take an existing service and instantly hand it off to the army.
You can. You just lose a couple of guys.
You just murder some people. Yeah. I don't know if FDR had like, I don't know, we're going to nationalize the airlines. That would have made a lot more sense because most of the same people would still be in charge. They could still run things properly. Probably would have had more lasting impact too.
Yeah. Should have done it.
Well, unfortunately, social democracy strikes again.
It social democracy. It always fails. You gotta do big corrupt Everard Clare style communism.
Yes.
And I mean, we are all living in a time when, with this character's death, the thread of prophecy is severed. But it's Huey Long.
Yeah, you imagine we could all work for the big Huey Long airline. We'd all be pilots. Some of us would even fly planes. Well, there's a segment on this podcast called Safety Third.
Shake hands for danger.
Good morning, WTYP PC peoples.
Interesting.
What?
Well, there's your problem podcast. For a second, I thought that was actually like ATM machine, like it'd be, well, there's your problem podcast.
So, missiles, sure.
Well, there's your problem, communist Carty.
Yes, the communist Carty. I hope I find you in merry spirits.
Decent. Shouldn't have had 3 beers recording this, but I'll manage.
Well, what's you gonna do? I'm on beer number 3 right here.
Yeah. But you're allowed to. I'm not allowed to, and I'm doing it anyway.
That's fine. We won't tell anyone.
No, thank you. None of you, the listeners, tell anyone either.
I have for you a safety third for the great southern land of Oz, in which a man does not follow best practice. In your episode on 5/1s, you mentioned that it is now possible to design and build a house without being in contact with an engineer at all. And this is true. Instead of being in contact with an engineer, you're in contact with me, your friendly neighborhood timber systems designer, or truss and frame detailer if you want to be old school about it. I have no degree. I have a 2-year apprenticeship and a Cert 3. My job is to sit in an office all day and design the truss and frame system for the hundreds of almost but not quite identical houses that our building industry makes on the daily. The office I worked in at the time of this tale was attached to a timber yard and floor truss plant. Both of the yard and the plant were jurisdictions of the company's production manager, a truly terrifying man who lived and breathed trusses.
That's so evocative.
I'm getting Isambard Kingdom Brunel vibes there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There were almost no incidents in the yard or plant because of him.
He's like a fucking Hearts of Iron advisor. You just like add him to the board.
He, however, did not have jurisdiction over the chippies who installed the trusses on site. I don't know what a chippy is.
I assume it's affectionate Australian for carpenter.
That's what I would think. That was my thought. Yeah, you get
joiner, I suppose we'd say here.
Yeah. The top and bottom chords of a floor truss are made of wood. And in shorter trusses, the webs are made of pressed galvanized steel to decrease production time.
Beautiful example here.
Beautiful example here. You have a top chord, you have a bottom chord, and you see the galvanized steel, right? It is here we should note the trusses are only strong in one axis, the tall one. On the flat, the trusses have the equivalent strength of the timber that forms the top and bottom chords, which isn't that fantastic when it's 5 meters of 90 by 45 MGP 10. I don't know what that is.
Maybe it's 90 by 45 meters and then whatever a GP10
whatever
is.
GP10. A GP10 is a type of locomotive.
Yes.
What is a GP10? GP10 lumber. We're gonna figure this shit out.
I don't.
Oh, it is MGP. It is MGP10. Machine graded pine.
Interesting.
Okay, that makes sense. I don't know anything about wood. I only know about steel.
Well, you don't have to feel bad. This is specifically an Australian classification.
That'll do it. The trusses can either be mounted with brackets between beams or sit directly over the top plate of the wall frame. Secured at the supports by either 4 skew nails driven through the bottom chord and top plate or by a couple of small galvanized steel brackets. Brackets are usually about 40 millimeters tall, and the trusses are usually 450 millimeters deep. To stop the trusses from falling over when supported in the latter way, bracing along the end webs is installed, as well as strong backs through the center spans when necessary. I'm getting confused here.
Yeah, me too, bud.
Okay, without this bracing, the trusses are very unstable. I have included for reference the do not section of the relevant floor truss installation guide.
I like this guy on the bottom right. Don't be doing this shit.
I see. Don't stack materials on unbraced trusses. Don't allow the stack to lean on the walls or be in a concentrated area so they overload. Okay, yeah, so on and so forth.
Because they're weak until they have okay, sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm in the office and I receive a call. A chippy has fallen 2 stories while installing some of our floor trusses, breaking at least one of them, as well as several of his arm and leg bones and a few of his ribs.
Oh.
We head to the site and see what might have happened. What befalls our eyes is a veritable bingo sheet of safety violations.
I am reading this in Australian in my head. A veritable bingo sheet of violations.
G'day, mate. Offshore prison camps.
Rack off me fucking truss.
A bingo ate me chippy. The house in
we
question.
love you, Australians. Please keep sending these in. WTYPpod@gmail.com. Thank you.
The house in question is a 3-story townhouse with a large open atrium at the front and an indoor first-floor balcony and master bedroom directly above. That sounds ostentatious.
It's a fucking McMansion.
The chippy in question was stacking large sheets of Sycon flooring over a section of newly installed and as yet unbraced floor truss that formed the ceiling of this double height space.
Oh, he stepped on one, didn't he?
Oh.
Figure 20 here.
It says
you don't step on them.
See figure 16, 17, and 20 of the installation guide, yes. When one of the trusses he was standing on rolled sideways underneath him.
See, it's good in one axis, but it moves if it's not braced.
It's not braced, yeah.
Well,
this chippy was not a small man. And in combination...
Who is?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh.
Show me a delicate construction joiner.
You every once in a while you run into like a really tiny laborer, you know?
Generally speaking, though, you get your CSCS card or whatever the equivalent is, you gain about 100 pounds as soon as you sign the fucking thing.
In combination with 4 or so sheets of flooring impacted the truss, figure 18, on the wide section, breaking it neatly in 2. He plummeted about 7 meters, landing on the Sycon panels and a pallet of boxes containing various fixings for other parts of the build. The truss halves, still somewhat attached to the wall frame, swung in towards their end supports, then detached and fell a neat distance away from him.
It's very clean, you know? That's like one of those bridge construction games.
Yeah.
Once it fails perfectly in the middle, it just swings down.
By the time we arrived, he was already on his way to the hospital, and the rest of the chippies had moved on to the next building until the site could be secured by WorkSafe SA.
South Australia.
South Australia. Yes. Bound for South Australia.
I was about to fucking do
I
that.
wish to God you'd never been born.
In South Australia, I was born.
Great song.
Yes. When it became obvious that the truss had been used outside of recommended parameters and it wasn't our fault, and after it had been inspected and photographed by the WorkSafe investigators, we took it back to the plant to be de-webbed and disposed of, and then produced a new one to replace it. The lesson here, kids, is not to score a 4 out of 5 on the dumbfuck bingo card, including on the site pack. Site safety is important.
It's got a thing over it, so you know not to do it.
Yeah.
Do not moonwalk across the top of one of these trusses. God, it really does look like he's moonwalking, huh?
It does, though. Yeah. Yeah, that was
Wow.
Well, that was safety third.
Safety third.
Shake hands with danger.
Shake hands with danger.
Right?
Thank you.
Right?
Thank the both of you. Really appreciate that.
Our next episode is on the Boston molasses disaster. Does anybody have any commercials before we go?
Listen to Kill James Bond. We're now out of James Bond movies. We're very soon approaching the time where we do a live show. Keep your eyes peeled for that. We will do No Time to Die in the form of a live show in London, England. So be prepared to make your way to that at a time TBD. Listen to Trash Future, listen to Lions Led by Donkeys, listen to 10,000 Losses. There's Franklin, possibly. Presidio Bay, possibly.
Yeah.
Penn Central Part 2 is coming.
Yes.
Sorry, this one is not Penn Central Part 2 and also is a little bit late, but we had some issues. We're working on it.
Yeah.
We're also going to work on getting merch better. Basically, think of us like your dirtbag boyfriend, right? We know we fucked up, but we're gonna be better from now on.
Yes.
We will not be, but we're not
gonna be,
and that's the important thing.
Yeah, we're fucked, but you know, you've stuck out this far. So.
We're such a fucking mess, dude.
All right. Well, that was a podcast.
That was a podcast.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.